Okay, and welcome to the second episode of the Decoding Business Behaviours podcast. I'm back with Terry, and we're going to be talking about some more areas around behaviours, and specifically in this episode we're going to discuss where to start with behaviours. So we did a really big top line in the last episode around what are behaviours, some examples, and then some little pitfalls you may fall into along the way. But here we're specifically going to talk about you've decided you want to become a behaviours business. Where do you start? So what does that process look like at the very beginning, Terry? Is it many people in a room? Is it you as an individual at the top of the business? How do you start?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, good to be back and to explore this subject in a bit more detail. So where do you start with behaviours? Killer question. I think that first and foremost, as the head of the business, I need to sit down and really think about what are the behaviours that I hold myself accountable to, right? And what do I see from the most successful people around similar business to us and the sort of behaviours they have. Then I started to look internally, okay? So first of all, I have a list of behaviours, and in fact, if I think back, I think the list was quite extensive. It must have been 15, 16 different behaviours. And then from there, I started to have a look around the business and what are the behaviours that I'm noticing from not necessarily top performers, but the performers that are coming in, they've got a smile on their face, and they're doing the right things that will give longevity to the business. So I looked at them, mapped them. Now the list is 24 different behaviours, right? Some of them kind of cross over. And then finally, I got everybody in a room. So, I think that with businesses, sometimes we feel that just because we sit at the top, we make all the decisions. We don't. Behaviours and having a behaviours culture, it's a culture for the people that is decided by the people. And what we did is we sat down as a leadership team, and we got their opinions, and then we hold something in Aspire, a meeting which was called Performance and Culture, and we did the same exercise with them. So we asked them, what would you say are the key behaviours you'd like to see in a business and from people around you? And what was quite interesting is actually they came up with the behaviours, and some of them were quite different to what the managers did. There was some synergy, but there were some different behaviours. And because they created them, they naturally, when you roll them out, which I'm sure we'll get on to, is they hold themselves to account to those behaviours.
Yeah, so it's you've had the idea at the top of the business. With our company, you put it to sort of a strategy group that are made up of non-managers who've then come back with similar or different behaviours, and then you kind of compromise and roll it out. That's really interesting. And do you think it has to be the nature of becoming a behaviours business? You have to be a really people-focused business, or do you think you can still have what you might consider a more traditional structure where there maybe isn't so much employee advocacy, but you can still run a behaviours business that way?
Yeah, so I think that you're able to run a business by doing it a traditional way, and there's many businesses out there and people listening to this to say, well, I've got a successful business and I've not had to canvass the opinions of my people. I have a slightly different view. Yeah. Okay, and my view is that when you get people involved in making those decisions, they will naturally gravitate towards those behaviours, right? It will start to wash through your business. I also feel that when you're in a senior position, and sometimes you can lose touch. And it reminds me of there's a programme I saw on TV. They dress up and they go back onto the floor. Undercover boss, right? And undercover boss goes down and then realises that there's some fundamental changes that have got to happen. Now, as the boss of the company, they're sitting at the top and they think they're driving the right behaviours, but it's not until they talk to their people that they realise that maybe some of those behaviours or some of their ways of driving the business are out of touch. They're no longer relevant to the populations that are coming through now. And so personally, I think that in the early days, when you're in touch and you're in with the people, you can build that. Of course you can. But I think the further you go through your career, I think it's foolhardy not to sit back and actually listen to your people. Because ultimately, they'll be the ones that will come forward to take your business to the next level in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's always the previous generations thought about the next generation, but actually quite a lot of the time you're coming into the next generation of the next generation, and now the junior people in your business, the largest cohort, they're going to have a really different way of thinking about not just what they want to do at work or how they want to work, but about the world in general. So I think you're right. I think you have to have some employee advocacy in there, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And I think what's important about having that in there is it goes two ways. So it's not about listening just to the people on the floor and taking everything they say and saying, we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if we did that, I'd be pouring champagne from 10 o'clock in the morning and no one would pick up the phone, right? So, but all jokes aside, it's about listening to what's important to them in terms of behaviours. But also, we spoke in the last episode about the boundaries and teaching them that some of the things that they're asking for, actually, you can't put into a business. I've had a lot of people when we talk about behaviours that can we finish early every day? Can we do a 4-day working week? And some of those behaviours just don't work for our business. Yeah. But it gives us an opportunity to have a conversation to challenge what their thoughts are as well as ours, and then we get a medium ground where everybody agrees. And I think that's at the heart of it. If you want to have a successful business, it's not about one side completely dominating affairs. It's about finding a middle ground. Everyone goes, do you know what? I see it from your point of view. And we say, I see it from yours. And we agree on a middle ground.
Yeah, we need balance. Because I think there is sort of that other side, isn't there, where you want to say, employee advocacy to the people, by the people. The people at the top of the business as well are the ones with the most experience in the main, especially the most experience within the sector. It's important that it's a combination and a meeting in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, I love an analogy, but we've been in business a long time. And some people have been in their careers quite a long time, so personally 28 years. And sometimes the ideas that people are having, they're the right ideas. Our job is to kind of say to them, well, be careful, because I've done that before. And, it's like saying to a kid, if you run too fast, you're going to fall over and cut your knee, right? So it's the same thing. It's saying, I get it, but before we can get to that 4-day working week, before we can get to having more flexible time, we need to get to a certain level of performance, utilising those behaviours that will enable us to take that next step. Now, if we change the behaviours right now and we say, right, okay, one of the things we want is everybody to have super flexible work half days, 4 days a week, we wouldn't make any profit, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden everything comes undone. So yes, I think it's important to listen to both sides, but it's our duty to listen to people with fresh eyes, right? And people that haven't been tarnished by all of the experiences we've had, and think, actually, what do they want?
With passion,
right? Yeah. Also, we're missing a trick here. I often think that when you're experienced in business, you think you know it all. You don't, right? You absolutely don't. And it's the fresh eyes that give you that new perspective. But the flip side of that is also for the people that have no experience, is listening to the grey hairs, if you like. Because I've got the grey hairs on the side. Because it's our duty to educate each other. Yeah. And I think there needs to be that balance. Otherwise, it's completely one-sided. Yeah,
very true, very true. One thing we touched on last time, we talked about if you've got an employee that doesn't fit within your behavioural system or with to the behaviours that you're sort of pushing, don't be afraid to make a tough decision there. And that kind of got me thinking, are behaviours a nature or a nurture thing? Are you born a external communicating, high performing, resilient person, or can that be taught?
Wow, that is a good question. Look, I think we're all born with certain behaviours. Some people are going to be more gregarious than others, right? Mm-hmm. We all have certain things that are in us that other people don't. It's what makes us unique. But I think that behaviours can be taught, and they can be taught at any stage, and they can be learned. It's really then about habit forming for me. So if I think about, when I was growing up, and we done a little conversation last time, we spoke about Johnny drawing on the wall, right? Now, just because Johnny draws on the wall doesn't mean for the rest of his life he's going to continue to draw on the wall. That's not really what it's about. So the very nature of having those boundaries and behaviours, we do it at a very early age, don't we? Yeah. Right, in terms of children, what you can do, don't touch that, it will burn your fingers. They go and touch it anyway, they burn their fingers, and they realise, actually, don't touch the fire anymore. So behaviours for me, I think that it's something that can be taught, but it's having people that have the mindset to be able to want to learn. and to be able to want to progress and understand that changing of those behaviours will be beneficial to them because they'll be happy, they'll be successful, right? I often think of that with a naughty kid. They say that when kids are naughty, actually all they're looking for is attention, and any attention is good attention. And it's the same thing. It's giving people the right attention and the right behaviours, and then when they demonstrate those behaviours, celebrating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then they see the success from it.
And when you say you can teach them and you can guide them, is it something that the kind of thing where you can just have a training course or training module of X number of weeks and then it becomes a inherent skill that is kind of second nature, or is it something more like, let's say, beginning to learn a language or something like that, where actually continually reinforcing repetition, practice is more important in terms of that, so adopting those skills?
I think it's practice. I think it's all about communication. I think it's about knowing that it's never going to be a foolproof plan and you're never going to get that big tick in the box. I think I said that on the last episode. And once you understand that you're on a journey and people are going to slip, you're more comfortable with the fact that it's a never-ending journey. You're going to get there. And this is really epitomised when you think about us as humans.
Yeah.
So, we may sometimes get up and we don't mean to shout or we don't mean to swear or whatever it might be, right? And we have to check ourselves. But it's okay to keep making those mistakes. And I think the important thing is that we all have to check our behaviours and remembering that we are dealing, when we're managing, with human beings.
Yeah.
And humans, we are fallible. We make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. And what we should do is we should celebrate the mistakes, that people do sometimes slip behind the behaviours, and it is our job to reset the boundaries and keep reminding, constantly training and getting them back to the right behaviours. And if they're good people, they'll do it.
Yeah, it'll become inherent, won't it? Second nature. What's the role of leadership in this? So, in that early stage, at the beginning, when we're trying to roll out behaviours, we're trying to bring them in. We know it's a lot of nurture. We're going to have to guide them, teach them, etc. Well, that may be handled by, the person introducing it, or a HR or a training function. What's the role of a leadership team in this?
See, I think leadership is one of the hardest things to what's your role as a leader. And I often sum this up quite simply with a really good leader, and their role is to be selfless, not selfish, right? So if you are driving behaviours because it's all about your own personal gain, oh, look how great my company is, my behaviours are brilliant, I'm now top MD, or I've got a load of dividends this year because everyone's got lots of profits because I'm driving the behaviours, you're going to come unstuck because it's selfish, right? You should be doing the behaviours because you actually want the people into your company to have a good experience. I get joy from being a leader, not from my own sales, right? So I still like to sell. I get the joy from seeing someone else become successful. And I think the job of a leader is to make sure that you are doing exactly that. You're leading your people to success. That it's almost like a parental role. Our job is to get them to a point where they no longer need us, right? Yeah. It's to get them to a point where they take our job, and we should be comfortable with that. And I think sometimes what happens is, if you are driving your business or you're driving any sort of methodology in your business and it comes from a selfish standpoint, they will pull away from you, right? At one point, they will pull away. And I think that people respect the fact of, don't try and keep your job. I always think I'll be glad when I have a team that can do my job, because it means I can go on and do other things, and then my job here is done. But it's not a job for everyone, leadership. And I think that when you're looking at these behaviours and you're building a company, your job as a leader is to make sure that you are looking after your people first and foremost, and then your people look after you to the point that they don't need you. Right?
Yeah, that's very true. And is that so vital? You'll have your leadership team buying into the behaviour system.
Yeah, one of the things I did when I first came to Aspire, I remember it was an awards ceremony, and I don't mind saying it on here, and you and I were putting the awards together. And one of the first changes there was I wasn't allowing any of the managers to win awards that year. And the reason for that is I wanted the people to show that their successes were being recognised. Because if you've got someone who's a manager, right, and I give you this example, when they're in a business and they're a billing manager and they've been billing for 10 years, right, and they have a great portfolio and they're making loads and loads of money, for someone who's come in and worked 2 years from zero to get up, they're never going to get that award.
Yeah.
And they're seeing the same people get up. And what I did is I said, no, let's give it to the people. Because what that shows them is that we're investing in them, we're celebrating their behaviours, we're celebrating them improving. And it's not always about the best billers either. As you know, we have, newcomer of the year, we have people that demonstrate the right key behaviours. So yeah, it's, to answer your question, it's really important to me, and something that I've spoken to leadership team about, and that was one of the first steps. And it was a big change, right? Mm-hmm. It's a big change. You can't give an award to yourself, and you're not going to win one. It's going to go to your people. And I think that's the first part of leadership is, we serve our people.
Yeah. And they have to come on that journey with you, don't they, to understand it. And because ultimately, I guess, they're also, with moving the business forward and making new additions, they have to buy into the behavioural system because they have to hire to the behavioural system, right?
Yeah, correct. So they have to hire to it. Also, when the people are coming in, they know that they're coming into an environment where everybody's treated the same, right? Because if you're recruiting to behaviours or you're managing through behaviours, I talk about the can't do, won't do. I think I said that last time. It means that everyone's on an equal playing field. It's not about, well, that person's treated differently because they've been here longer, or that person's treated differently because they're a top biller, or that person treated differently because they went to a different university, right? Yeah. It's behaviours span across all levels of education, all types of people, all levels of service. It doesn't matter whether you've been here 10 years or you've been here 2 years or 10 months, right? Everybody's treated the same for the behaviours. And I think that creates almost like a synergy and a cohesion in a team. And because you're recruiting to that, what then happens is that people coming in, even if they have no skill, they have a similar ethos, a similar mindset. And that's how you start to layer up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. That's really interesting. And then I think the last thing I sort of wanted to touch on in this episode is talk a lot about, there's a lot of the behaviours we've used and the nature of our business is it's a very sales-heavy organisation, right? Or a lot of sales heads. Are behaviours just applicable to sales teams?
Absolutely not, no. When I think about the behaviours, I think about, well, it doesn't matter for me if you're back office, front office, and that's the great thing about a behaviour system is let's take resilience, right? You're going to have to be resilient in any job that you do. You might have a task that comes in last moment in marketing, it could be in finance, and it's not gone your way, you've got the deadline to hit, so you've got to be resilient and get it across the line. It could be that you need to have a growth mindset. So there could be a problem in any department and you've got to think of the solution. Yeah. So for me, I think that behaviours goes across all jobs. And that's, again, one of the beautiful things about a behaviour system is that it doesn't matter what job you do. You've got to have the right behaviours to be able to fit into that organisation.
Yeah, it's all about the fit of the organisation and the way you go about your tasks, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether you're going about this month's P&L, your sales call to a new client, marketing brochure, or a new dashboard on the system. It's all about people bringing that same attitude to their tasks.
Yeah, because what you wouldn't want is that you've installed a behaviour system in a team, let's call it the sales team, and then your back office team are doing something completely different, right? So they're not showing resilience, or they're going for coffees early, or they're not being proactive, and that breaks the company down. And for me, the whole thing about having a behaviour system in an organisation is it should be that if you go to Singapore, it's the same. You go to Dubai, it's the same. You go to the US, it's the same. If it's back office, it's the same. Front office, it's the same. So then it becomes your DNA. So when people think of Aspire, they say, this is how we work. Okay, and it's not just Aspire, it's any organisation. And I think that is absolutely key to the behaviours.